In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The voice of spirit.
The voice of spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, a very warm welcome. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be in the world. We've got a great program and a wonderful guest tonight, and it's a similar subject, but it's not actually about the paranormal. And I was drawn to a video that was posted on my Facebook page about a death doula, and watched it, was absolutely fascinated by it. And I then contacted, I hope I'm going to get the name right, Alua Arthur, and she has her own website, which is www.goingwithgrace.com, and hopefully I've got that right, Alua. And she's been a death doula for some time, and if you've not heard what they are, it's probably better if I get Alua to explain it to you. But basically it's a preparation for passing, and this is something that can be done midlife. They do of course deal with those that have conditions and terminal conditions and that, but I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to make these preparations in life, so we know that they're in place and we can relax. As Alua and I were saying just before the show, passing is something that just happens. You can go like that sometimes, and it depends on whether you feel that this is an advantage or not. You have knowledge because, a diagnosis of cancer or something like that. And then it's all last minute. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alua. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well, because it's something that most people don't think of in the context, I think, of their mortality. There's a time sometimes when we're ill, like people that have heart attacks or other problems. Those can be life-changing because it usually makes you appreciate life more. And I think part of the service that you and the organisation give is it makes you appreciate it without having to go through the stress of being seriously ill and recovering. So I don't know if you would agree with that, Alua.
Absolutely. I find that I do a lot of my work with people that are still healthy, that are just starting to consider their mortality and the end of their lives at some point. And through the process, a lot of emotions come up and a lot of ideas come up. But generally what comes up at the end is such incredible connection to living and joy for what they've experienced thus far, and a desire to experience more of the things that they really enjoy out of life, rather than feeling like the dark heaviness or thinking about not living anymore, where some people might see dark heaviness.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think it can be depressive for some people. I know with what you do and what we do as mediums and spiritualists generally is to give that encouragement that there is something else, and so hopefully we wouldn't get too depressed about that.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of another part of the program, which we won't really touch on very much. So I do think it's a wonderful thing. And it's interesting that you say there are a lot of people that are in perhaps midlife or who are healthy. Tell us a little bit about the organisation and how long you've been with it.
Sure. So Going with Grace is an end-of-life planning and support organization that offers support in a variety of areas, doing pre-planning, so people that are healthy, that are starting to consider their mortality, that want to get their affairs together, preparing for dying. We work with people that are with disease and know when the end date is coming, and working to help them craft and create the death that they want for themselves. And then after a death, we help family members wrap up the personal affairs, close accounts, and also offer some bereavement support and connection with a loved one that has died. I started going with Grace about 5 years ago, and I've been at it that entire time, at it hard and strong.
And I think it must be a very rewarding job to do.
Oh, it's the best. I cannot think of anything better. I really can't. Maybe if I loved puppies, I'd want to be around doggies all day long. But this is it's such fulfilling work. It fills me up in so many different ways. Getting that close of a connection with death consistently feeds me and my living in ways that I could not have imagined when the idea to do death work came to me.
Yeah, I can understand that completely. And one of the things that does, I will touch on spirit a tiny bit here and there. One of the things that spirit do say is that we need to enjoy this life, to experience. And I think, again, one of the wonderful things that happens through your organisation is that people then appreciate that they have a life and want to make the most of it, because there are times that only happens when you've had a close call.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did you hear about? Tell us first of all what a death doula is and how you found out about it.
Oh, it's kind of a fun story. Well, death doula is somebody who offers non-medical care and support of the dying person and the family. My organization has expanded it a little bit by also doing pre-planning with healthy people, which realistically we're all dying in a way anyway, right? Since we just might not know when. So in that way, we support all dying people. I found death work about 5 or almost 6 years ago. I was on a bus in Cuba, and as spirit does, I had followed some breadcrumbs without even knowing it and was led to Cuba. I was on a bus with a young lady who had uterine cancer. And I remember talking to her about her illness and about her death. And it was the first time that she had shared so fully her ideas on death and dying and thus living. And on that bus somehow, I walked her through what was still undone in her life, what she'd be holding on to here, what she believed would happen afterward, all the questions that most of us or some of us aren't really engaged with regularly while living. Yeah. And during that bus ride, I was wondering why there aren't people to support other people through this thing. I mean, I understand that there's a way that you can open up with a stranger on a bus in some faraway land that is rare. But, at the time also, she had some mental health support, but they were talking to her about living with disease. They weren't talking to her about dying. And I was like, oh, we're all going to do it. I'm going to do it. Everybody on this bus, everybody I've ever seen, everybody that has ever lived. Why are we not engaged in this conversation more often? And on that bus, I got very clear that this is what I was going to be doing with my life. I was practicing law beforehand, so it was quite a departure, but it was necessary.
Yeah, and again, I think it's interesting on 2 points what you've just said, that you were doing law before that, so that gives you kind of an oversight of maybe how to settle things up. And I don't know whether, in a technical sense, you help or the organisation helps with wills. So I can see that being very useful, that you have that background. But also in Mexico, that they treat death very differently, don't they? They celebrate it. There's a day of death, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mexican culture, their connection with death and dying, at least from my perspective, looks to be one that celebrates and also looks at both sides of the coin, not just the living, but also the dead, and how to bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, so I find it fascinating because I don't believe in coincidences ever.
Me neither.
All happens for a reason. And I just find it fascinating that you had that background. You're in Mexico, which has that kind of different view to many countries, and that you came together with this wonderful lady, and that kind of ignition took place.
It's even the story itself. Every single time I think about it or I tell it, I get goosebumps because there were so many tiny things that happened along the way that after I got clear that I was doing death work, and it was in Cuba, when I got clear that this was my life's work, I became so singularly focused on it and so filled up with the work itself and with all the talk about it, all of the knowledge about it, all the philosophy about it, how we do it currently, cultures. It encompasses every part of life, and it very quickly encompassed every part of my life in an expansive way. And looking back, there's no doubt, there's no question that this is where I was headed anyway. Looking at, all the work that I've done in my life, but also leading up to meeting this woman. Interestingly enough, I'll tell you a short part of it. I was running through the street in Cuba after being out way too late the night before, and a car had almost hit me. And when the car almost hit me, I hit the hood and thought, oh my gosh, get it together. Don't die out here in Cuba. And eventually made it to the bus stop. I was running late and met this woman in line at the bus stop, and she offered to hold my bags for me so I could get a ticket for the bus because I was late. And she got me on the bus. I got the very last seat. I think they kicked some poor Cuban off so I could get on the bus because I paid a higher ticket price, and sat down, started chatting with her, and then we started talking about death. And that's when I was like, oh, this is clearly the work I'm going to be doing. Anyhow, she decided to stay on the bus with me longer than the original 7 hours that we were going to be on together, and got off with me. Much later on that night, she shares with me that she was in the car that had almost hit me earlier. So, right?
I can see what you mean about following the breadcrumbs. Yeah, absolutely.
Just little tinkles along the way, and all I had to do was listen and pay attention, and led me directly to her and to my life's work ultimately.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's beautiful.
So you created this organization, and I do love the title of the website, Going with Grace, because that's what it's about, isn't it? Can you explain to us how people's first reactions when they hear about it, people's reactions when they first, I think I'll go along and just have a look, what sort of reactions do you get from people?
Well, when I first tell people that I do this work, it's always, questioning. The eyebrows are furrowed. They lean it a little bit like, what do you mean? I think that there's maybe a little concern that I do help people die, but I think the concern is more that I'm, actually administering medicine or something, actually killing people. But what I find is that once I really start talking about the work, the reactions are one of three. Either I wish you were around when my mother, dad, brother, sister, best friend, somebody died. I wish that I had thought about living and dying in this way. Or they want to start talking to me about grief that they've experienced and start talking to me about different ways in which they grieved and the experiences that they had. And I think that my work really gives people permission to talk about dying, which as a larger culture, we're not doing very much of, which we really could do a lot more of.
Absolutely. Because again, it is natural. As you say, you can pick a number, 150 years, nobody that's here now is going to be here.
Right.
Nobody. All 8 billion, all gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So it's a very natural thing. And I found myself that sometimes religions they create a lot of fear from the point of view of I was brought up Catholic, and there's the fear there that if you don't follow this, if you don't follow that, then chances are you're going to burn in hell, and there's going to be all that kind of thing. So do you find that you have to either skirt round the religious bit a little bit, or does that not come into it? It's just a kind of side issue that isn't mentioned.
I really just follow the direction of the person that I'm working with, because for some, religion is at the forefront, and the conversation about death is about religion and the afterlife. And for others, it's not at all. And so I do my best to just let the person lead and follow them where they want to go. Obviously, doing some difficult question asking in the process to help people, whoever it is, gain clarity about what their beliefs are. But yeah, I leave it up to them to tell me where we're going.
And I think that's great, because I would say that people would just, perhaps be a little bit apprehensive and just open up more and more and more. So I can understand it's a very therapeutic thing, especially to put your mind at ease about what might happen. I'm 61, and of course, once you hit a certain age, I'm sure it's the same in the States. Letters come through the door. Have you made a will? Have you done that? Oh my God, the cost of getting buried, and you get some of the sort of scare stories with all the advertisements as well. What's the most surprising thing you've encountered with people's reactions? Is it what would you say surprised you most?
That people think I'm killing people.
Yeah.
That was so surprising. And it happens pretty often. But one thing that also often surprises me is I can understand that we have individually an idea about what we're doing here on Earth, right?
Yeah.
It's just when it comes to people claiming to know for somebody else what they think that person is doing here on Earth, that's where I struggle. Because belief systems to me are so individual. And when one person always seems to think that, well, that's what they need to do, or this is what this person needs to believe, or this is how this person should behave, it shocks me. Death is one of the most individual things we do. Obviously, our lives are so unique as we go through them. We're these unique expressions of spirit walking around consistently. Yet, as we die, we do it in such very different ways. There's no one way to do it. I've never seen it done the same way. And how we approach it is so individual. It can be such a mix of emotions. It's a mix of everything that we've done while living, our relationships, our work, who we are, how we presented, what we've accomplished. Everything comes into really sharp focus when we're looking at our dying. And any imposition of one's belief on anybody else really just gets my goat and surprises me that people think that they know how another should do it.
Yeah, and again, I'm a great fan of Jimi Hendrix, and I know that he was a medium, and that used to be denied, and it's not now. But there's a wonderful song called "If Six Was Nine." Basically, so which way up is it? You turn it this way, it's 9. You turn it the other way, it's 6. 6. What does it mean? And there's a line in that song, and he says, I'm the one that's got to die when it's time for me to die. And it is something, we may have a crowd of people around us, but as you've said, it is something only we can do. What's the most common fear that you encounter? Is it the passing itself, or is it that what a mess is going to left behind, perhaps how the kids are going to cope in a one-parent family? What touches you most?
I'd say what touches me most is regret. People who reach the end of their lives and have a lot of regret about what they didn't do while they were living. It's rarely the things that they did do. It's almost always the things that they did not do. And that breaks my heart because there isn't any more time, at least not in this go round.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a wonderful film out with Morgan Freeman and Robert De Niro, Bucket List. And of course, that's a comedy. But I think if we thought about things more and just did the things that we want to and didn't have those regrets, that would be a wonderful thing. So when people come to you as sort of middle age or whatever, is that something that sort of comes up immediately, or is that something they realise they're talking personally about themselves and, oh my God, there's things I want to do?
Yeah, it comes up very quickly when people are about middle age and they start planning for the end. And it's something that I do some question asking about. Because really, the question about dying, one of the questions about dying is, what has my life meant? Right. It's a big one. And so when people are starting to consider in any way, if I were on my deathbed tomorrow, what is still left undone in my life? And whatever the answer to that question is, I need to get on it today because I might be on my deathbed tomorrow. I might not make it till this evening.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, none of us know. As you say, we could walk in front of a bus. Anything could happen. So
Keeps it kind of spicy, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah, because obviously there's that urgency there of I need to be nice to people. I need to get this sorted. I need to get that sorted. Plus, I need to do whatever it is that I might, need to do. So I think it's a great thing to make people think about this because, as you said, it then gives a greater value to the life that you have left.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the benefit. That's the juice of talking about death.
Yeah. Because so many people are scared of it, aren't they? For one reason or another. And do you find the fears are sometimes irrational? And I know it sounds a strange thing to say, but
I don't know. When I think about sometimes the fear that I experience, maybe fear is too strong of a word, but anxiety I experience when going into a brand new experience, like when traveling to a foreign country by myself with no guidebook or something, it's a little exciting because the adventure awaits, but it's also like, man, I don't really know what to expect. Am I going to like the food? Like there's a bit of apprehension because it's all very unknown, right? Yeah. And so when I think of like the greatest adventure I will ever undertake, right, there is some connection to the other side given people that have gifts. And yet it's still a big unknown because I haven't experienced it myself. I can understand why there'd be some apprehension, like, oh boy, I'm about to do this thing and I don't know anybody who's ever done it and quite come back. Nobody's told me what it's like exactly. I have my own ideas, but what if I'm wrong? What if it's something else entirely? What if there's nothing at all? There's a lot of unknowns going into it.
There is. We're going to go into a break in probably a minute or so, and so we'll look at that after the break. But again, I think it's fascinating because I think unless you have a how can I say, belief's not the right word. I think unless you have a firm knowledge,
yes,
or just no fear at all, whether there's knowledge backing that up, then it's very different. But I think otherwise we do kind of think, oh, I could be wrong about this. We'll be straight back after this. God bless.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo. After these brief words from our sponsors.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Dear John, uncontrolled high blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. But when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
To get your high blood pressure to a healthy range, visit heart.org/blood pressure. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Thursday nights are about to get weird on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Join hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz as they go exploring the bizarre. Jet across the cosmos with two of the most electrifying paranormal researchers in the known universe. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Exploring the bizarre takes you deep within the world of the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology. It's time to take back the night with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. Exploring the bizarre. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Only on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at KCORradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, welcome back. We've got a very interesting guest tonight, Alua Arthur, and she is a death doula, and she created the company www.goingwithgrace.com, and it's basically a service that helps people, whether they're close to passing or not, to cope with and to plan for passing. And as we've discussed in the first part of the program, it actually releases you to live your life. So it's a life-giving, it's a life-affirming thing. So welcome back, Alua.
Thank you.
Now, we were talking in the break, weren't we, about close family members of yours that may have passed, and the experience before you discovering this and the experience after, has it made big changes for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, aside from the practical ones of having a regular, consistent job in a career field people acknowledged and understood, and to entering to the unknown, personally, it shifted things a lot. All of my family members now, most of them have completed end-of-life plans. And, I'm constantly in the conversation about death. My parents are very religious, and so that is another element of it that we constantly discuss. But it shifted things in my relationships. Both my parents are still living. All of my grandparents are dead. My last living grandparent died when I was 5. And so I didn't have that experience of a grandparent dying in my adolescence or adulthood to connect with it in any way.
Yeah. Because I found that no two are the same. When my mum passed, she had various forms of cancer and she wasn't very well. And for me, it was, well, it's okay, she's not in pain anymore. And I kind of dealt with it. And that may sound rather cold-hearted, but I was kind of pleased for her, but it didn't affect me too much. Yet when my dad passed, I was completely distraught. And that was even with the knowledge and the experience that I've had over 59 years. Well, it would have been probably 50 years experience at that point. So those two were quite different. And it is different every time, isn't it, as you've explained?
Absolutely. Every single time. Most of the experiences I've had with death have not been family members, so there is a little bit of distance in it that way. But at the same time, just watching how family dynamics are and how people's responses are, and I had the joy of being able to support somebody through the death of his mother, and then a short while later his grandmother, and his reactions to both were so different, even though it was him who was still in the middle of grief. Granted, the relationships were different, and he had already experienced one grief. But yeah, we respond differently every time, and different from each other.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that everyone really should take note of. And it's interesting that you talk about the dynamics within the family, because it isn't just the person that may receive news from a doctor. I had a friend that received the same kind of thing. It's the family that it affects, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I often hear when doing some planning with people, oh, it won't matter, whatever we're talking about. It won't matter because I'll be gone anyway. And I think, yes, you will be gone. However, you'll still have people that love you here that are going to be grappling with some of these decisions to make, like, do you want to be buried or cremated? What would you want to wear? Trying to close your accounts, what to do with your stuff, even though it won't matter to us anymore because we're no longer in these bodies to experience or to share or to care about what happens to my laptop. My family members are going to have to deal with it at some point. So let's do each other a favor.
Yeah. And I think that again is a wonderful thing, because I don't know if it's the same in the States. Over here, if you don't make a will and they can't find family, then the government basically gets the whole estate, houses, whatever it might be. And they have people here and there, I'm sure, called hare hunters. So they look for the relatives, basically. But I think there's an astonishing rate of people over here. I don't know what the percentage is. I know it's quite high, that don't make a will. And I do feel that for some of them, a service like yours would be wonderful, because they think, well, if I make a will, I'm going to jinx it. I'll be dead in 6 weeks. And they just don't want to think about it. And I think that's why a certain amount of people just don't make a will. Just think, well, if I don't think about it, it's not going to happen, which is ludicrous, of course. But have you found that kind of mentality, and then sort of explain that to people, or do you find that they're fairly open when they come to you?
No, I find that mentality a lot. What's interesting about my work as opposed to the estate planning services, which are like wills and trusts and things of that nature, is that I feel like people are more comfortable with the idea of getting a will, even though they are still scared and they don't want to look at it or talk about it. But with my services, we're talking directly about their death. Like even some of the language when people go in for a will are like, if something happens to you, then this is how your affairs will be handled. Or if something happens to you and blah, 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 blah. Whereas when we sit down and we talk, it's not an if, it's a when. It's not an if. No question about it. And so, I mean, it's not intentionally confrontive, but I just would rather be realistic.
Again, I think you're absolutely right because, and looking at it from my perspective and experience, it's no good getting over and then thinking, oh my God, the mess I've left. Perhaps the family's going to be fighting over it, and who I want to get, whatever it might be, they're losing out. I can kind of see that part of it, or of the realization of I should have done something. I think our lives individually, of course, they're different, but our lives are very, very important. But the other two things which are very, very important in our lives is our birth and our passing. And I think the more people talk about this, the better. So we can get it from that perspective of, as we've said, it's going to happen. Deal with it. Make it as good as you can. We were talking during the break, weren't we, of an experience I had with a skeptic, and the skeptic had a near-death experience, and there was just blackness, nothingness, and he was kind of attacking me in a way, and saying, "Look, I've been there. It's dark, it's cool." There's nothing there. And I wrote back and said, the point is you were aware of nothingness. And as I said, I never got a reply to that. But people have all these strange ideas. Do you come across any really strange ideas that they have?
About what happens on the other side?
Well, or even just leading up to passing, because it's. I know for a lot of people, because of religions, it's a fear that's created, isn't it? Have I really been good? Or I think I've been good, but would the church say I'm good? Because they're connected to God, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've been slightly facetious there, but yeah.
I find that most of the strange responses are from the family members, because there's such a quietness of spirit that sometimes, generally, I'd say, happens around the time of death. For some, it's fraught with challenge and resistance. But for quite a few others, when it's absolutely clear that this is what's happening, there can be a quieting of spirit, which means that the ideas are not so out there anymore. It's just kind of like, okay, this is what's happening, and I might not know, but I have a sense of what might happen, and now it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the funny things are the family members, like rituals and beliefs, and don't cross past the feet. That one person told me not to cross around the feet; I had to go around the head, which I didn't understand, but I did it anyway.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah. It is a strange thing, and I know that families can be very reactive, can't they? It's. I think there's a point at which some of them will just rally round to give lots of support, and others, to be quite crude about it, have just got their eye on the money, and the infighting starts. It's It can be quite a divisive thing, can't it?
Absolutely. I mean, aside from weddings, I can't think of another time in a family's life where there's more infighting and challenges, and because you have all the emotions present. So many emotions, such a challenging emotional time. And I think that when most of us get upset like that, we revert to our, what I call our base camp emotion, like the way that we generally express emotion. Some of us get angry, some get sad, some get distant, some get hyper manic, some go into go mode, they're just like handling everything. And we revert back into this space of like emotional, their emotional go-to. And it creates such challenge.
Yeah, because I can understand that default mode just kind of just kicking in. What's the strangest situation you've had with a family reaction?
Strangest. It's kind of hard to say because they're also unique, and a lot of them are not at all what I would do or what I think my family would do, but it's what's happening in that family. I once had a family that argued a lot about pain medication nearing the end of their father's life. And one side of the family thought that he was getting not enough because he said he wanted more, and the other side said that he was getting too much. And it was just this constant battle between them about how much pain he was having. And nobody thought to ask him.
Yeah, because it's subjective anyway, isn't it? And I mean, the nearest thing I suppose we could say is to a doctor, how's he reacting to it? They're still, the machine's still monitoring pain. How does he look? It's strange, isn't it, that people would sort of quibble over that.
Right. Particularly because he was conscious and communicative. It'd be one thing if he wasn't, but he was fully conscious and could still verbalize.
Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room, isn't it? We know he's there, but we're just going to ignore him and get on with our conversation. It's not what you want to hear when you're lying there, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. The conversation about pain is a consistent one. It comes up a lot, and there's a lot of ways to work with it. It's also best if we can just talk to the person themselves. They're not a pariah or some delicate being because they're dying, and we often forget that they're still living until they die.
Yeah, because I can't remember what the phenomenon is called, but there's a similar phenomenon with people that are disabled, and they did a test, and they find that if somebody else is talking, they don't talk to them, they talk to the carer or the person that's pushing the wheelchair, almost as though they don't want to face that person. And it sounds as though what you're saying is that there's a similar thing there of, well, they're on their way, so we'll ignore them and we'll chat amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you find people make a conscious decision to either have everybody around them, or they think, because it is something we can only do alone, that they want to be alone at that final time, which I could understand would be quite painful for very close family members. But do you find people make those choices?
I find that people exercise their choice in how they end up dying. That even though, around the time of death, people do come together and the rooms are often full, or there's people there. Granted, if this person is well loved, there'll probably be quite a few people there. But sometimes people are lonesome. But even with the people that are well loved, I've seen several times where there's, one family member that has been there, they're maybe taking shifts, and that family member steps out to go to the bathroom or get a drink or take a phone call. And then the person dies when they're alone. And so even though they may not have ever said, I'd like to be alone when I die, they most certainly exercise it when time comes.
It's something that I've known from spirit from the other side of life. And as you say, they could be there 36 hours and more. And the moment they think, well, I just need to make this call, that's it. It is something that we choose, and ultimately, whether there's a room full of people or not, it is only something that we can do alone. Tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you organise for people. So the wills, do you talk to doctors and that and say, well, look, they're telling me they're in pain, and do you act as a sort of intermediary in that way?
Sure. I act as an advocate for the patient and for the family, but oftentimes advocacy is from the patient to the family, because maybe the patient or the person who's ill and dying has some things that they maybe don't feel comfortable saying to their family, but they will express to me, and then I'll find a way to work with the family that way. I don't actually do any wills at all. I don't do wills. I think that there's so many lawyers out there that do that very well, so I let them handle it. I deal with the juicier stuff. I think it's far juicier than talking about possessions. We talk about healthcare decision-making, who can make your decisions for you in the event that you can't, what your thoughts are on life support, how you want to be cared for and treated, so your care and comfort. We also talk about final disposition of the body, burial, cremation, options around that. Where do you want your ashes scattered? Do you want a funeral, memorial? What kind of music? Do you care if people wear black? Food, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We deal with possessions, but more the sentimental stuff, dependent and pet care, and then some of the important biographical information. A lot of accounts, like where are your online accounts? What are your passwords? What do you want done with your social media? Things like that. And then the juiciest part, which is the part about what your life has meant, the meaning in it, and its inevitable end. What are some of the things that you want people that are still going to be living to know about you and who you were and what you believed, who you loved, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that you work as an intermediary between the person that's in that position, and they can't really state, to their family, well, actually, I know I've told you, I don't know, you're going to get the watch or the car, but actually I've changed my mind, I want the other. And they can't express that, and they get you to do that, because I think that must be such a release of stress for them. I've got some difficult things to do, but I'm just going to leave it to Alua, and thank God for that.
Yeah, it puts me in a fun position sometimes.
I can imagine. I can imagine, and because I think traditionally, people that do write a will, and there's many that don't, they'll say, well, I want this or I want that. But ultimately, it is left to the family, isn't it? Well, let's dig up some quotations. We're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to organise what it is. I do think it's important that we, as an individual, can express how we want that ceremony to go, and have a lot more control over it, because again, I think when you're at that point, and you may have, I was going to say, if you're lucky enough to know, and I mean that, because I think, if you find out that, I've had 3 family members, my ex-father-in-law, my cousin, and my good friend, and the time scale was eerily concise. My good friend had a bit of a tickle in the throat. He'd had it for some time. He knew there was something wrong. The doctor said, just take pills, just take antibiotics and that. And he finally insisted that he be seen. He had an X-ray, and what they found out was that he had cancer level 4, which is basically that's it. And so it gave him, they said, well, you've got about 5 months left. And it does sharpen the mind. And he began to work fairly frantically, getting everything ordered in the way that he wanted. But his funeral was one of the funniest I've ever been to, because there was lots of lots of laughs, lots of things that he'd written. He had some wonderful songs, and the last song that he had to kind of cheer everybody up was Fraggle Rock. And I've been to many funerals. I've never been to one, and I thought, you know what, he's planned that to a T. Wasn't he lucky in a sense that he was able to, his personality shone through, and I think to give people that advantage, that option, I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
I'd agree. It is. I think it is a bit of luck to know that it's coming in some way. I mean, people often say, I want to die at a ripe old age in my bed, in my sleep. And that's such a nice vision, but the reality looks very different for most of us. And I think that when we know that it's coming, granted, it can be filled with anxiety, but it also means time to handle some things and maybe perhaps get there with no regret, or to make a nice, fun funeral for the people that will be left behind.
Yeah, and I think it's very important for the personality of the person to come through. I know I want lots of, I'll have lots of different music, Hendrix, Santana and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want people to have a big party, because I know for me, when I go home, there'll be a big celebration. But it's a celebration of my life and what I've done. That's how I think it should be. You've got a branch in the UK as well, haven't you?
Not yet. We don't.
I thought I saw something. Okay. Right. Because have you thought about expanding into different countries? I know it's a big thing to
yes,
ask. But.
I have often. I see this as really a worldwide movement that gets to happen. So I think about it quite regularly. If anybody's interested, I'd be more than happy to talk about doing that.
Oh, that'd be great. We'll touch a little more on that after the break. But for now, we've got www.lwdwtraining. That's all one word. Is this can't be yours then? Because it's .uk/doula training. It may be. I think that's where I picked that up. But I think it'd be good if you could expand into different countries and through Europe as well. We've got a few seconds, about 30 seconds to go. So we'll be straight back after this with Alua.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The Voice of Spirit.
The Voice of Spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, a very, very warm welcome back. We're talking to Alua Arthur. She's a death doula, and that's basically a service where they discuss your wishes, put you at ease, and I suppose in a sense make a bucket list of everything that you might want to do. And it has a wonderful side effect, if you like, of making you appreciate life and giving you a new lease for life to do what you want to do. So, very warm welcome back, Alua.
Thank you.
We were talking during the break, weren't we? Or I was about this old James Cagney film in black and white where he played gangsters lots of times, and he was sent to the electric chair, and he was going to go defiantly, and don't care, etc. And a priest got involved because there were kids that really adored him that were starting to stray into that, and the priest actually made him realise that if he went the way that he wanted to go, that he would be adored and idols and more crime would ensue. So he eventually went screaming and crying to the electric chair to save these kids. And the reason that came up was because we were talking, you were talking mainly about your past, and I was kind of talking about mine at some point, of it being a wonderful example to show people that, not only is it a good thing to discuss, to bring everybody sort of aware, not only of your service, but of there are ways of passing, but it gives you a new lease of life, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even staying in the conversation about how I want to die or what my regrets are near the end of my life or something like that. I mean, I'm often using it as a barometer for myself about the life that I'm living and what I'm accomplishing or what I'm experiencing and what I want to experience more of, or where I'm actually very content. Often putting myself on my deathbed, if tomorrow were my last day on earth, what is there left undone? What do I need to say? What do I want to do? What do I get to experience? Yeah. And I'd hope that my death, if I die before I really get a chance to create major change in the way that we view dying in this world, then I would fully expect and hope that my death gets to be the feast upon which that lesson is brought to the forefront.
Yeah. And again, I do think it's a wonderful example. Okay, so have you had any adverse effects from, say, maybe a couple or someone coming in and the family thinking, oh, that's gory, we don't like that, I suppose that the typical sort of fearful response?
Yes, often. Sometimes they don't want me. You know what happens more often than not, though? It's the family that hires me for the dying person, and they don't want me to tell the dying person what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they create some title around it, like patient advocate or serious disease counselor or something like that, so that they want to keep it from the dying person that we're going to be talking about their death. What I find, however, is more often than not, the dying person knows exactly what's going on and perhaps aren't talking about it with the family members to try to shield them.
I was going to say, I'm sure you find actually it's more the imagery that the family have in their mind. It's I've just got this funny kind of feeling. My humor can be a little bit odd sometimes, of the family saying, look, we're going to take you to someone, just to do, it's a nice friendly, don't worry about it. We're just going to, and they'll walk into a funeral parlor, and then the person's thinking, oh my God, what's happening? But it seems to be that kind of approach, doesn't it? They say, well, we need to get this done, but we won't tell them. It's quite strange. Have you had any kind of outrageous things that people have wanted to do? Because I can quite imagine somebody saying, well, like, I don't really want to give my family any money because like they've been, getting it all their lives. I just want to go out with a bang. Have you had any of those kinds of experiences?
I'm not really talking to people about their money and their stuff so much.
Mm-hmm.
So not in that way. But I also run some workshops around death awareness. And so one of them is a guided immersive meditation and experience that it's an exercise and they write stuff down on note cards and, through the process, they're going through kind of a death story and thinking through what would be more important to them if they were in this situation. And there's one question I ask at the end, which comes up consistently. The answer is pretty serious, but I ask if the similar thing, what would you want to experience if you knew that this was going to be it? And people almost always answer with like heroin or some hard drugs in some cases, which I find hysterical.
Yeah.
And there's no shame about it at all. Not that there should be, but, they're just like, if I knew that this was it, I would do some hard, serious drugs. And I'm like, well, shoot, if that works for you, by all means, enjoy.
Yeah, it is strange. And to me, that gives the kind of fear of living, really. Not that I'm advocating drugs at all. I don't take them at all. But I can imagine someone saying, well, what I'd really like to do is just floor the pedal down a motorway, you skip in and out of cars, just the thrill of it. But they wouldn't have the front to do, probably because they care of causing an accident in other people, but they wouldn't have the front to do it in life. But they think, well, I'm going now. It's 2 minutes to midnight. I'm going to hit the pedal.
Right.
It's kind of funny that they live in that kind of fear and then think, well, when everything's gone. I was going to say gone to hell. Don't mean that. When everything's sort of shot to bits, what am I going to? I'm going to be really outrageous. I'm going to do some hard drugs. It's kind of a sad reflection on society, isn't it? That we hold this fear of living, and we think, well, we're going to go now. Let's just go for it. Yeah. It's a strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah, let's just go for it now.
Yeah, because I know I'm breaking the law, but they're not going to put me away for it.
Right. And if I get addicted, it doesn't matter. I'll be dead anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how do you feel? I suppose suicide is a subject that must come up in one form or another for you. And this is something that we've covered in the program many, many times. People, we should care about animals. Absolutely. They're all souls in a different form. But we seem to treat animals much better than human beings, don't we? Because if an animal's really in pain, say it's got a broken back or something, we do, in speech marks, the kind thing and we have them put down. But there's a lot of resistance to people being in that position and thinking, maybe you're paraplegic and you can't do anything, a degenerative disease. We don't seem to put people in that category. So do you have people talk about those emotions with you? Because I should think that's something quite strong within some.
It does come up quite a bit, and it's really most of the more painful conversations around that. Like, I don't want to just degenerate. I don't want to wake up and lose another function. I know I'm dying anyway. Can we just stop it now? And we have medical aid in dying here, or in California where I live. But I have very much been thinking about the fact that we do it for animals and we do it for dogs. Yet it's only legal. And I think it's legal in maybe 6 states in the States right now where there's medical aid in dying. And in fact, it went back in California recently and now it's back again. I believe strongly in the right of the individual to choose, right? To self-determine across the board throughout living. I so firmly believe, and I get to decide what is best for me at all times. And I think that should also be afforded to my dying.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. It's one thing that we have particular rights all through our life. And yeah, a point which is most important, very critical, in lots of places in the world, we don't have that final choice. You know, and I mean, it's at the moment it's been debated a lot in England. It is illegal in England, but it's legal in Switzerland. And so what people do is they ostensibly take a holiday and they go to Switzerland, and they pass there, and then the body's brought back. So in that sense, it's a little bit of a loophole. But it is the one thing I think that we should have control over, you know, especially if it is that degenerative that you're in so much pain, but you literally can't swallow, you can't talk or anything. It's to me, it feels as though that's a sense of torture, really. You know, of all the things we can control in life, one of the most important we can't. There are cultures like the Aborigine and the Maori, I think, and I think again the American, the Native American Indian. But I know in the Aboriginal society, the Aborigines, they have a very good sense that, you know, this is close, and they go walkabout, as the Australians say, and they'll just wander out somewhere in the open, and they'll sit under a tree or by a cave, you know, for 2 or 3 weeks, and just pass very naturally. And to me, that seems quite a natural, peaceful way to go. I think, like in Mexico, you know, that there are cultures that embrace this thing that we call death and have great respect for it, but also respect that, you know, we have a choice, which is It's, so do you think that it will get expanded more in the States? Is that something that's happening gradually, or?
I hope so. I really do hope so. Yeah, because the alternative is people consciously refuting food and drink and essentially starving to death.
Yeah, which is
you
not
know,
a great
to self-determine.
Yeah.
No. I mean,
And I
I believe
suppose-
in choice. I can't say that I would choose for myself, but I really believe in people to be able to choose for themselves. What was it that you were about to say?
I was just thinking, because again, you know, it is an individual choice, and if you think literally, you know, I can't go on, it can sometimes add a stigma for the rest of the family, can't they? Or put them through pains and think, well, you know, they're refusing food now, and that's stressful for the family too, isn't it? You know, that there may not be any other way around it, you know, for someone.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's heart-wrenching. It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah. Again, I think the service that you perform is wonderful, because it makes people so aware of that they actually have choices, and they have that control, don't they, of creating a bucket list and thinking, oh, you know, what's the strangest request you've ever heard someone say, apart from, you know, getting a hit of heroin or something? Is there anything that's been really kind of way out there, you know, like walking across the desert or something, or, you know, obviously not while they're real, but...
No, they're generally very simple things. We talked about the simple things earlier, but, you know, it's like, I want to taste my favorite chocolate milkshake again, or I want to have whiskey again, or I'd really like to see my daughter one last time. Or they're the little experiences in life that I feel like people really want more of when they know that their time is ending. It's a lot less of, I want to see all the paintings in the Louvre, but rather, I want to paint my fingernails red again.
Yeah. Wow.
Simple things.
Yeah. And I think, as we mentioned, you know, it is the little things in life that make life worthwhile, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you found that when the families kind of become aware of this, that if they have, say, relatives in Australia that become aware of it and think, well, you know, now Granddad's brought this up, we're going to go to the States and we're going to see him, maybe the last time, maybe not. but we're going to see him. Do you find, Pete, that other family make those kind of decisions as well?
The decisions about,
just visiting one last time.
Yeah, they do help. The family members make those decisions also. I think most of us have this experience, but you hear that somebody in your life is dying and you want to call them again, or you want to try and go and see them or visit, or do your best to be around. Is that what you were asking me?
Not quite. It's like, if you're in maybe 70 or 60, 70 and you're in good health, but the family have heard, hey, I've gone to see a death doula and we're doing this and we're planning everything. And it comes to mind to the family, we hadn't thought about that, but yes, of course, they could go at any time. Let's go and see them. Because it's very, it involves the whole family, doesn't it?
It does. It would be really amazing if whole families would come to me. I did actually do a family of 10 in Colorado, and they were incredible. There were the grandparents, the adult children, adult children also. And then there was an 11-year-old son who was around. But otherwise, the entire family discussion. That way, everybody's clear on everybody else's wishes. There's nothing morbid about it. A lot of laughter. A lot of people learning things about each other that they didn't know before. When family sits around and do it, it's really a time of bonding. And it's so empowering because after a death, they knew exactly what this person, this family member of theirs wanted. Yeah. I wish that more families would come to me altogether rather than this. I often have adult children, maybe in their 50s, that ask about working with their parents. And the parents are like, oh, are you trying to kill me off?
Yeah. I can kind of imagine that. Who are you talking to? Okay. It's I can understand the great sense of freedom that it gives people, and again, it is life affirming, isn't it? It makes you think about what's important in life and to just get on with it. And do you find people sometimes, I was going to say have a personality change, but change their personality from maybe being short with people, and quite grumpy and that, and thinking, well, hey, life is for living. Let's make people a little happier. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, some people just hold on to the grouch all the way through to the end. But yes, I do find that there are some personality changes. There's some softening that occurs.
Yeah, and again, I think if that softening helps not only that person communicate more, but creates that bonding with others, and because then they've got a different memory of that person, haven't they?
Absolutely. On the other hand, is also like the hardening that happens maybe with people that were very sweet and didn't stand their ground much while they were living and active in life, then start, no bullshit, cutting straight to the chase when it comes to some things too. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, and I can see that shortcutting and being straightforward with people. A lot of people appreciate that. Some find it hard to take, of course, but again, I think it changes the dynamics of the relationship, and they probably get a lot more out of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, dying is such a rich time for everybody involved. It can be such a rich time if only we choose to see it that way. But we're so used to seeing it in the one lens of sad, and yes, also sad, but also grounding and expansive. There can be joy. There can be beauty. There can be real connection. There can be space to find out who we really are in those moments.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I've been to funerals, and not because of what I do, but because I also know a lot of people. And 1 year I went to 31 funerals, and they were like friends that I was and neighbours and their family members, which I kind of met or whatever. So we was involved, and it's sometimes you hear some very funny things at funerals, and it ranges from poor old sod. Well, he was miserable anyway. To the other extreme of, oh God, I wonder who's going to go next. And again, in the funeral setting, in that kind of setting, it's a very negative thing, isn't it? It's very negative. And again, I think what you do, if you can bring all that out, and people go, he had at least a life at the end of it. He did what he wanted to do, and that's kind of what I want to do. Have you found when one family member takes the plunge that others come forward and think, hey, I enjoyed that, I want to do something for me? Do you find it's I was going to say kind of repeat business, which sounds very harsh, but do you find people coming back?
Yeah, one of the big benefits of, this is another area where there can be a richening experience around dying, is learning how we want to do it for ourselves. Much like how we learn how to die based on the people that have done it before, we learn the same thing about going to funerals. This works really well. I definitely don't want that. And then if we use that and actually start planning, that can be wonderful, rather than maybe just either complaining about it or talking nonsense about what actually occurred. We can use it always, and then people want to start thinking about their own. And I get a lot of clients who have recently experienced a death and saw things that they did not want present in that one.
Absolutely. We're just going to go into break now, and we'll be straight back after this.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
One of the planet's most powerful antioxidant products is here for you to enjoy. Chaga mushroom tea. This tea has been used as a potent natural health solution for thousands of years. In fact, the Chinese call it king of the herbs. The health value alone is worth a look, as Chaga mushroom tea packs a punch with pure vitality and smooth energy. It's 100% wild crafted, safe, and effective. Get it now at arcticchaga.com. That's ARCTICCHAGA.com, or call 916-969-2678. That's 916-969-2678. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Order your supply today.
That's
good.
Turn your radio up.
all the music I want to hear.
This is my station.
Adopting a new pet is a rewarding experience. And shelter pets make super pets. Your new best friend will steal your heart, bring you happiness, and enrich your life for years to come. You can make a difference in the life of an animal. Adopt and bring home a shelter pet today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org. This message has been brought to you by the Humane Society of the United States, Maddie's Fund, and the
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is your captain. I'd like to welcome you on Jackpot Airlines Flight 1610, service to Lost Wages.
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, apparently, they need a reality check done Vegas style.
Vegas, 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 Vegas.
Tune in Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, for Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Biggest star in the world, bigger than Britney and Christina put together.
If it's happening on the Vegas Strip, you'll know about it here first.
You are a dirty little fun haver.
Join Jessica Johns as she explores and goes behind the scenes of what's hot and what's not. From the best entertainment Vegas has to offer to national celebrity gossip.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Jessica has her finger on the heartbeat of the city, and she's waiting to share it with you. Reality Check, hosted by Jessica Johns. Wednesday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. She does Vegas right.
Yeah, baby.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at kcorradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide Colors. Use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, a very warm welcome back to the last segment tonight. We've got Alua Arthur, who's a death doula, and we've been talking about what she does and what her organisation does, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So if you've joined us late, do go back to the archive in a few hours, I think 12 hours or tomorrow, and you can catch up on all of it. It gives a wonderful, wonderful message. It's very inspiring because it inspires us to think about our passing and to get those things done in life that we want to. And so you'll hear a lot of that through the other part of the interview. And one thing that Alua wants to talk about are the courses and the training that you do, isn't it, Alua?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. One thing that I find a lot about my work is people are often so curious about it and wonder how they can do it themselves, either professionally or they want to be able to do it for their family members, which is so beautiful. I mean, ideally, all of us would know how to be with dying in a way we do, since it's a human thing, but want to know practically what it takes in order to be with dying and maybe have a family member die at home and be the one responsible for them. And so I've created a training program. I'm in the process of creating it right now. It's going to be an online distance learning program that's going to teach people how to do death douling and end-of-life planning for themselves, or to do it professionally. And if you're interested, please find me on my website. There's a little tab for if you're interested in learning this work, and I'll get you some information about it. Part of my big vision for how we die looks like everybody having some professional support to do so. Even though, like I said, it's something that humans have been doing since forever, the way that society looks now doesn't look like it did in the 1800s. So we do need a little bit more support through the process.
Yeah, again, I think it's that fear that's grown up in modern man, because psychism or spiritualism is something else that we grew up, from cavemen. We had instincts about what flowers were good to eat, what were medicines, etc. And we didn't really have to ask. We had an inner knowing. And I think we carried that inner knowing about passing on and death, and so we had a different view. And I think modern living has a lot to answer for, because it kind of scrapes all that away, and that together with religion, I think it creates this fear. So I think you're absolutely right. Modern modern man has created this illusion, and thank God you're helping to scrape that away. Would you like to give us your webpage URL?
Sure. It's www.goingwithgrace.com.
Fantastic, and they can find out about what you do, how to contact you, because I'm sure there'll be people. Our biggest audiences are in the United States and then the UK, but it goes out to a lot of different people, 105 different countries. So I'm fairly sure there'll be a reaction, and people will be interested in this, because I think if they're not, if someone not that interested in the life after, the next most important thing I think is the life that we have. It's very important work that you do. Are there any other things, Alua, that you want to bring up that we may perhaps have just touched on or not touched on at all?
Trying to think about what we talked about in the breaks, because our breaks were pretty juicy. Weren't they?
Absolutely. It's sometimes, we get chatting in the break, and then we think, oh God, I must remember that, and I must bring that up again, and then we get started, and we lose some bits of it. So it's but unfortunately we don't have any outtakes during the program. So if you've got any questions out there, it's a bit late at the moment, but it's 702-425-9230. If you do want to call in and ask, it's a bit late, but yeah. Okay, now I'm sure you must have had some funny experiences with people either thinking, well, actually I'd like to do that, and the rest of the family going, oh really? Yeah. Because don't mean to be facetious, but death can be a very funny thing as well. So have you had any kind of experiences that really surprised you and surprised other members of the family when someone spoke up about it?
There is this new thing that's been traveling around on Facebook about saving tattoos after death. Have you heard of this?
No. Nothing would surprise me though. Yeah.
Right. People want to save the skin, save the tattoos of their loved one, and frame them and put them up on the wall, or just have it in a little keepsake box. And in one of my consultations recently, somebody mentioned that, and his wife was like, what? Because he's heavily tattooed. It was like, we'd have to take off most of his skin. She's like, what would I do with that? Gross. No. I just thought it was hilarious. Because he was like, yeah, it'd be a really nice idea. And of course, he spent so much time in his life decorating his body by creating these tattoos, and they're part of who he is. For him, that'd be a very nice imprint to leave, but she was not into it at all.
I can understand both sides of that. I don't have tattoos myself, but if they're done well and you are a walking piece of art, I can imagine that. I was watching a program over here called QI, quite interesting, and it's a comedy program basically, but it's got lots of weird facts, interesting facts, and they were talking about in I think it's Iceland, and if it's not, and anyone from Iceland's listening, I do apologise. But they have this thing where they have the skin of the legs, and they make them into trousers for someone.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's quite. That's what I thought. I thought, oh, okay, and I wasn't sure whether they were serious or not, but they were. So there is that kind of thing.
We wear leather pants, don't we?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know how you would keep them. But there was another program, and there was a gentleman that had himself. He's in a museum actually, but he had himself stuffed. As you stuff an animal. Mm-hmm. And so there he is standing, leaning against something. What you've said about wanting to preserve the tattoos, I've not heard of it before. Doesn't surprise me at all. But people do have some strange ideas of what they kind of want once they're gone.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think for the most part, everybody still has this desire to be remembered, right? We don't want to be forgotten. Yeah. And so a lot of the requests are about that, things to do to remember me, or don't forget me, or I want to make sure that I had some impact somehow. So aside from just like the legacy, who was I and what did I create in this world? It's also, remember me and my uniqueness. Yeah. Take this watch, remember me by it. Take my skin, remember me by it. Whatever it is.
Yes, I don't think I'd go that far. I think I'd want something very minimal and just. I've said to my daughter, it's in the will anyway. I've said to my daughter, I just want to be cremated. Don't spend any money. Whatever's over, is over, and make sure everybody has a good time. And I don't care what you do with the ashes. And I was being a little bit facetious. You can scatter them somewhere or you can stick them in the bin. I really don't care. Just have a good time and remember me. Hopefully for some of the nice things. I've been a little facetious there as well, but I can see, because I think what's important, because of man's way of thinking. Generally, we want to make an impact, don't we? We want to make a change. We want to create an industry, or be the first man to climb Everest, or whatever. We want to make an impact. So I find that quite interesting that people want to do it in maybe slightly odd ways. But it's very interesting. It's just got my mind racing now about things that I would like to do.
Tell me.
What is your like skydiving and stuff. But I've got a heart condition, so that'll probably be the last thing I do.
I'm about to say that might be the way you die.
Yeah. I want to be remembered for. Oh, you're next. Gone. Yes, I can imagine that, but yeah, I think, if we can help to preserve part of this planet, which we're successfully ruining so well, I think it would just be nice to go and visit parts of the planet. I think it would be wonderful if most people could do that. But
Oh, so I've actually, since we're talking about that, just a little tidbit that you might want to consider. If the environment is one of your primary concerns, and I'd suggest, I don't know if they're legal yet in the UK, but a green burial. Have you heard of this?
Yes, where you can have either a cardboard kind of coffin which rots away, and you can get planted near a tree, or a tree planted on top of you and stuff. We do, and sometimes they actually weave a sack and basically have you in that, and then you're cremated and what you want to do. So, yeah, we have that here. I think it's something that's growing. I wouldn't say it's exactly popular, but I've not researched it.
Okay.
I remember
cremation releases a lot of CO2 into the air and does quite a number on the environment the way that it is. And a green burial is currently the most environmentally solid option.
Now that's
just
interesting.
Something to think about.
Yeah, because I must admit, I hadn't thought of the environmental impact of doing that, because in England we're starting to seriously run out of space, and so they're thinking Catholics traditionally couldn't be cremated, and then common sense stepped in and they said, well, actually we think God wouldn't mind. We'll change the whole Bible to fit in.
We talked to him again, and now he says,
yeah, we've had a chat, and so lots are being cremated, but there's still lots of people that want a traditional burial. And what they're talking about now, I don't know whether it would be done, is to have the grave dug 6 or 7 feet deep, and instead of lying a coffin in it, having coffins stand up. So they can bury like 6 to the plot where they would normally get 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're talking about that. So I think it is quite. I think it's getting urgent, because where most of the cemeteries are in England, they're within London, city centres, and so they can't really expand. I don't think anyone knocks down houses to extend a cemetery. It's more likely a cemetery is built, dug up, and they build houses. So it's something that's Interesting. But thank you for that thought, because I hadn't thought of the environmental effect of that.
Makes a difference.
It does, doesn't it? I did hear of a service where they take the ashes and they compress them, hundreds of tons of force, and they make diamonds out of them.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. What do you think of that personally?
I think it's kind of cute. I think it's kind of cute. I'm not quite sure of the process by which it's made, but I think that whatever creates some type of connection still to the person who died for the people that are living, I'm okay with, even if it means taking their skin and holding it, keeping it in a frame on the wall. If it makes you feel more connected, then A-okay by me.
Yeah, because I think ancient tribes had some protocols like that anyway, didn't they? They because a lot of the ancient people really honoured the dead, didn't they? There was a lot of reverence. It was taken seriously, I think, from the point of reverence, but the passing itself wasn't serious. I think that's a modern man-made thing which you're combating.
Yeah,
okay. Have you anything, Alua, that you? I think I'm finally getting the hang of your name. I know I pronounced it differently, so I apologise. Have you got any last things? We've probably got 5 or 6 minutes to go that you want to bring up or reiterate the training or whatever.
Just really that, considering death has tremendous impact on so many different parts of our living. And I believe that it takes looking at it constantly in order to live very full, authentic, and connected lives. And the more that we can do that, the better. It may be uncomfortable or not, but it also has great opportunity for a lot of benefits while living. And so the more we can do that, the better overall.
Absolutely, and I think the more people get used to it, then and the more acceptable it becomes. I think it would really get to a point of, oh yeah, let's talk about it. There is that saying as well, isn't there? Live every day as though it's your last. In other words, get the most out of it. And I think there are lots of things that I would take from tonight's interview, but I think one of those would be that if you get the right sense of perspective, you can make your own life and those that you care about, you can make their lives a lot better. You can enjoy it more.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the worst things. Sorry. Yeah. I think one of the worst things are what ifs, isn't it? Oh, what if I'd done that? And yeah, it's a fantastic service. Brilliant. Now, let me see. If you're interested in this, then and hopefully you are, because it is something, as Alua said, we're all going to face. None of us are going to be here in 150 years' time. That's absolutely guaranteed. So if you want to, it's www.goingwithgrace.com. And Alua is setting up some training sessions, and she's working on that at the moment. So if you find this interesting, do tell your family members, do encourage them. If you want to go train yourself, I'm sure Alua would be very happy to have more people to train. Okay. A strange question, I suppose, as we're running to the end of the show. Are there any things that you've seen within families, not necessarily your own, that have brought the realization that something could have been done has brought great sorrow, that they wished they'd done or had the knowledge?
Most of the time it's around planning earlier or coming into awareness of the death occurring earlier. The way that things are set up right now, our health systems just keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying without the acknowledgement that the treatments might not work, and that the individual could just choose not to treat it. It seems like treatment is the road that everybody's expected to take, but sometimes not treating it might be the better option in that you can live out the remaining years feeling good and maybe still enjoying things rather than spending all in the hospital and sick and dying. And so often the biggest regret I think that people have is not choosing differently and not planning earlier and not having talked to somebody who sees death as an option. Because death, choosing not to treat is an option. It's always an option.
Absolutely, because the way they treat cancer at the moment, that is as destructive as the condition itself. And as you say, you spend a lot of time being sick. You spend a lot of time hanging around in hospitals, getting to and from hospitals and the recovery. I think personally that I would be definitely inclined along the way that you said and think, well, it's happening. I don't have to go through the sickness, through the pain, through the deterioration of that. I'm going to deteriorate anyway. Painkillers are obviously fine. We want to be as comfortable as possible. But I would hope that more people would make that decision because, the chemotherapy is so destructive, isn't it?
It can be. It absolutely can be. It also at times buys people some time for hope, which I don't think hope is at odds with knowing that death is inevitable. But sometimes it also buys people maybe some time to come to grips with the disease. A couple rounds of chemo, people know how terrible it feels, and then they think, maybe I'd rather just die and know that I enjoyed the time that I had rather than spend my remaining time sick. I'm really curious, actually, to hear about the end of your life and what you would like it to look like.
Well, I get premonitions and different things, and I've been told I will reach 100. Some of that's left up to me, of course. If I try and keep fit, that would be a different matter. That I will pass, not in my sleep, but lying down on the sofa. But I would want it to be a very joyous occasion. I would want everything settled as far as I can. So, I've made a will, and I probably need to update it actually. But I've made a will, so I think I have quite a few things in place. I think the only things that probably I haven't got in place is places that I would like to go and things that I would like to do. I think with my children, but also just as an adventure, and to just visit different places. As you said, get the most out of life before then. So I think I've got a few things planned, but it would be interesting, I think, to talk to you. I don't know how things differ really from the United States to here, but I think I've got some things planned, but haven't thought about it as deeply as we've covered in the subject, really.
Great. I'd be very curious to hear what opens up for you as you really start to dig into it.
Yeah, I will dig into it, and I will let you know. I'll keep you updated with what I'm going to do. So, yeah, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Thank you so much for being on. It's been very, very interesting. I think it's a very important aspect of life, and if it's something that can bring out the joy of life and the appreciation and just to get as much out of it as possible for yourself personally, but for your family, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So let me thank you, Alua, once again for the interview. It's been so interesting talking to you. I know people will find it interesting, and thank you so, so much. We're just going to give your URL again. It's www.goingwithgrace.com, and strongly advise that you go there, have a look at it. It's a nice site. See what you think, get in contact, and make those plans. Plan for living as well as planning for dying. So thank you so much. Any last words?
No, other than that, I so appreciate your willingness to talk about this side of death and to bring the awareness there as well. Thank you, Leo.
It's so important to have a good life, good passing as well. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Do listen in next week. Not quite sure what we've got planned for then, but my thanks again to Alua Arthur. Don't forget that site, and we will speak to you soon.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.